Primetime business news. Now, over 200 Japanese and South African business people have gathered in Johannesburg to discuss investment opportunities for Japanese investors in South Africa. There are currently 150 Japanese companies operating in this country. Together, they employ about 150,000 people. South African exports to Japan currently amount to 50 billion rand, and the two countries are working to expand their trade and investment relations. Well, now we cross live to our reporter Mbongeni Mutwa, who is at the Sandton Convention Centre where this gathering has been taking place. Good evening to you, Mbongeni. How significant is this engagement in the context of the relationship between these two countries?
Well, Francis, it's quite significant because you may recall that Japan is actually the fourth biggest trading partner of South Africa in the world. That's after the US, China, and Germany. And also, Japan sources a lot of its minerals from South Africa. That's what actually makes up that 50 billion rand figure that you've just mentioned in terms of our exports to Japan. I must say that figure is actually from 2015. Crucially also, in that year, we had a 5% trade surplus. South Africa had a trade surplus with Japan, which is a rare. So we imported around 40 billion rands worth of imports from Japan, and they bought more from us. So it's quite significant in that regard.
And a surplus is what we want. It's helping our rand right now because we saw some good figures for December. Does this sort of thing work, what we want in South Africa? More investors, foreign direct investors coming here. Could something like this help? Well,
I think this sends a signal that Japan is very serious about its trade and investment relationship with South Africa. When we have a seminar like this attended by the Japanese ambassador, the Japan Chamber of Commerce, heads of Japanese corporations and so on. In fact, I was looking at some data here. In 2014, there were about 3 major investment deals by Japanese companies in this country. Mainly in the renewable energy space, the solar and so on. In 2015, we also had about 3. But suddenly last year, there's been a lot of investment activity by Japanese companies in this country. One could mention the establishment of the Panasonic TV assembly plant, a multi-billion rand plant in the Western Cape. Japan, there's a Japanese company which has a tire factory in Ladysmith in KZN. They invested 2 billion rand expanding that plant last year. Toyota, they introduced a new line of production of their Hilux motor vehicles and the Quantums. There's been a lot of investment activity by Japanese companies since last year. Also, about 15 other Japanese corporations set up offices in this country last year. So it seems like the Japanese are very serious about investing in this country and using this country to expand into the rest of Africa. Lastly, if I may add, when the Japanese ambassador was giving his opening remarks here, he made a point about that currently we're living in a time of uncertainty in the world, in the global economic space. You know that in the US we have a new president who's been very vocal, threatening Japanese exporters with slapping them with tariffs, as much as 35% and so on. One suspects that Japan or Japanese companies could be looking at perhaps moving some of the production here and then exporting from here to the US, maybe to avoid such actions by the US president, whom we have seen that when he makes threats, it seems like he means them. So it's going to be an interesting space to watch.
So let's see if we benefit from all of this. Thank you very much. Mbongeni Mutwa reporting from the Sandton Convention Centre, that engagement between South African and Japanese business people. That's all we have time